In Guan and Hosik 2, Episode 8 of Our Blues, wastes absolutely no time returning to that big cliffhanger yesterday. Hosik and In Guan end up fighting with each other in the market. Captain Jun and Yunwei both get involved too, prying the pair off each other. As Jun holds In Guan, he rasps over to Hosik, calling him a thug and discussing the pregnancy. Hosik bites back, telling In Guan that he's ruined Yeongju's life. Hosik sports a nasty cut above his eye, which he blames on tripping while drunk earlier on. He sits with Yeongju and hands over several bank cards, holding 70 million won. He's saved up every penny and by next month, he's paying off Yunwei all the money he owes. However, he wants Yeongju to get an abortion in order for them to live happier together. He sees this as the end of her life, believing the baby to be baggage. Yeongju clings to that word and turns it around, asking Hosik if that's how she sees him, as baggage. Unfortunately, this cuts deeper than any shouting or berating, as Hosik airs his regrets. He gives her an ultimatum and tells her to get an abortion or leave. So she decides to leave. Hosik promises to cut ties with her if she walks through the door, so she leaves. Yeongju heads off to stay at the motel, with the owner giving her some leeway even though she's a minor. He encourages her to patch up her differences with her dad in the morning. Hyein heads over to see her not long after, giving his girlfriend fruit and handing over the money he's earned for them too. After, Hyein heads off to see Hosik, telling him that he and Yeongju have genuinely feelings for one another. Hosik pleads with him to take his daughter back, but he refuses. As he holds Hyein up by the scruff of his neck, In Guan stands from afar and tells him to get his hands off his boy. This standoff continues though, as both Hosik and In Guan refuse to give in. That makes things worse for Hyein and Yeongju. While Hyein works picking tangerines and causing a big mess in the process, Yeongju's cold is getting worse, and she skips out on the academy. Down on the docks though, Sone passes and notices her in a rough way. Sine helps collect her bag from the water and comments on how the girl is pregnant. Unlike the others, she's much more warm and attentive toward her, even touching the girl's belly. "Congratulations," she says with a warm smile. It's a small moment, but something that sees Yeongju reflect on how she's actually happy to be a mum. Well, happy until In Guan finds her at the motel and drags her, quite literally, outside and straight to the hospital. Hyein is livid and demands his father unhand her when he sees. Hyein continues on, calling his father ignorant. Hosik notices In Guan from afar, dragging his daughter, and he rushes over the road. However, it's Hyein that knocks his dad down, pushing him into the bins. "You've always been an embarrassment to me," he says. Hyein points out how he should have left with his mum, and how Hosik takes over though and beats him down to the ground, repeatedly pummeling him. In the police station, In Guan and Hosik air out their problems. This rivalry and bitter hatred for one another stems from that flashback we saw earlier. In Guan calling Hosik dirt poor in front of his baby girl was bad enough, but to do it on the eve of his wife leaving him was a step too far. As Hosik himself admits, he actually was dirt poor at that time, so those words cut him deep. After throwing In Guan's money on the floor, he actually decided to borrow funds off Yunwei instead. As for In Guan, during his gangster days he was running down the street away from thugs. In doing so, his mother-in-law spotted him and tried to chase after him. Unfortunately, she stepped into the road and was hit by a car. When In Guan's wife found out, overcome and distraught upon hearing she died, she left him. Her mum wanted In Guan not to be an embarrassment to Hyein, but given he uttered those exact words out in the street, that's obviously not gone too well. That night, In Guan collapses and falls down the stairs. Out of everyone, it's Hosik who finds him and he carries the guy to hospital. When In Guan awakens, Yunwei is there to greet him, and she reveals as much. He scoffs at the notion, and refuses to believe Hosik would do such a thing. Hosik attends the meeting at school where he learns Yeongju and Hyein are both allowed to stay on. They won't be kicked out. Hosik struggles to talk to his daughter though, and eventually walks away from her, struggling to hold back tears as Yeongju breaks down on the running track, pleading with her father to stay with her. In Guan heads back to work but Hyein heads over, worried about his father and his diabetes diagnosis, which is the reason he fell down the stairs earlier. He was weakened from not eating properly. As they argue, In Guan points out how hurt he is by hearing his son call him an embarrassment. As the tears begin to flow, Hyein apologizes to his father and hugs him tightly. Outside, Hosik watches them together. Our Blur returns to deliver its best episode yet, with an absolutely gripping hour of drama. We not only see the issues involving both Hyein and Yeongju, but we also see a lot of their inner turmoil and the bad blood between their fathers. It does feel like this baby is going to bridge the gap between the two, and hopefully there are happier days ahead for them both as they work through their problems and heal. The real stars of the show this time are both In-guan and Hosik. Their emotionally charged moments were so raw and authentic. From start to finish, the whole episode is beautifully paced and really helps this one stand out, especially during those fights. With more drama to come next week, we'll have to wait and see what our Blues has in store for us. If this episode is any indication, it looks to be quite the rollercoaster ride.